All right, so this is a little weird. I've never taught like in a space like this. So I'm Professor Lannis. This is Econ 221 Business Stats. We have a big enough room, obviously, that everyone can meet. So also, it's going to be weird for me not being able to see the projectors necessarily all the time. So if they ever go out or anything, let me know. But we should be able, you have the ability to come here every Tuesday, Thursday if you want. A lot of the other sections I have don't have that ability. Based off my experience last semester, showing up is really important. And if you don't, your grade will likely suffer. So we'll have this set up here where hopefully you're able to see the slides okay. Are they blinking or is that just me? Nope, they are. Okay, there we go. We'll play around. We probably won't use it today, but I don't have a board, obviously. So I'm probably going to be using this dot cam. So anything that I'm kind of writing down to show you should pop up on these screens as well. If you aren't able to attend, I've already got a couple students who have emailed me, either waiting on COVID tests or positive COVID tests or any point, in the semester. Given your circumstance, you don't feel comfortable attending. I will kind of stream these on Zoom. The links are on Canvas. I'll show you kind of how to access this. I know I had the video I posted before class and kind of went through it, but I'll go through it again today. Also, every Zoom meeting will be recorded. I'll post it up on YouTube. So for whatever reason, you miss it or I don't know, have technical difficulties, they will be up there kind of after class or after the class occurs. I found last semester, this is probably something, I don't know if I'll do it after, this, hopefully COVID is over. But it allows you the ability to always go back and watch those videos. If we work through a problem in class that's similar to something on a homework assignment, it's really like this bank of this huge resource. And I'll put a title on the video about like what topics we covered. So when it comes to homeworks or even studying for the exams, you can always go back and rewatch parts of those videos. But those resources will be available to you, okay? I've been here, I think it's my 6th year now. I've taught business stats every single semester, so getting pretty good at it, I think. Last semester, a couple semesters threw me a curveball, but I think this hybrid format, we got kind of zeroed in here pretty well as well. So with that being said, let's go here. I'll show you a couple things before we kind of jump into the slides. So I mentioned, and I think this is in the video I posted, the Zoom kind of option down here on Canvas on the left-hand side. Once you click on it, you kind of see each class. We have a meeting that's already built in there. On that day, if you wanted to attend class via Zoom, you just click on that start, or that, I think for you guys, I might say join button. You'll hop in. We've got all the files here. So I did update the lecture slides for today. I kind of put a little kind of title on them. So as we continue each week, you'll be able to go back and see which slides we're covering what material, right? Sometimes I'll be ambitious at the beginning of the week and put up a lot more slides than we actually end up covering. My philosophy is I try to keep my course as flexible as possible. I have some dates that we'll go over in a second about when the exams will be. In the past, they usually fall on those dates. I would say about 80 to 85% of the times, those dates will be when we take the exam. Sometimes as it lead up to an exam, I think we might need an extra class to do some review. They may get pushed forward a bit. They'll never be earlier than what's posted in the syllabus, but they may get pushed forward a day so we have a little bit of extra time leading into those exams. I have this folder up here, part of this course, business stats. The way I view it is this isn't a stats course. It's not in the stats department. It's business stats. I would probably call it applied stats, which is a little bit different. I will definitely go over the theory, but a lot of the times I'll kind of gloss over the theory and say, look, this is how we get from point A to point B. But I'm never going to expect you to reproduce that. What I want you to know is once we get to point B, how do we apply this to real world scenarios, right? I don't care if you understand necessarily the theory of once we get to linear regression, but I do want you to know how to use results that we can get from things like Excel and actually apply those to the real world, right? So I'll post a lot of data sets in this folder that we'll go over in class. Primarily, the only thing that we're going to be using is Excel. I might show you how to, how I use a different, further advanced stats program, but that'll be towards the end of the semester. I'll never expect you to use it, but just kind of give you a little bit of a taste of if you continue to take a stats course or if you get a job in the real world, what they might expect you to use. But we're primarily just going to focus on using Excel, right? That's kind of the building block. It gives us the critical thinking skills to where you could really take what we'll learn and apply it to other stats programs. Okay? So if you're not real comfortable with Excel, once we get to the slides, I've got a couple links for some resources from Ball State to kind of help you get a refresher course. Since I record these and put them up now, I try not to talk too bad about other courses, but I know some of the prerequisites where you were supposed to learn Excel, I'm often told you did not learn Excel, or that you basically got out of it not really understanding a whole lot. So when we first start to work through Excel examples, I'll go very slow, and if you have a good understanding, it might be a little boring because I'm going to dumb it down to like you've never opened the program at all. Okay, so initially I'll kind of baby us into Excel. By the end of the semester, hopefully we feel pretty competent, at least in terms of using Excel for statistical purposes. Okay. All right. The syllabus is also up there. We'll look at that here in a second a little bit as well. I kind of summarized it here in the slides. So, class overview, right? So what do you need? If you, for whatever reason, aren't able to attend in person, you'll need a computer or a phone that has access to Zoom, right? Or you want to watch it after the fact, a computer or a phone that has access to YouTube, which all of them should, right? Other than that, we're going to have a book that has an access code. It's Yagi and Kelly's book. I think I had a small typo when I initially posted the syllabus, so I reposted it. It correctly said edition 3 of the book, but I think it was published in 2019. I originally had 2018, so if there's any confusion there, it's the 3rd edition of the book. I think a 4th edition now exists. We're not going to use that. And all you really need is the access code to that book. Okay? If you want a physical copy of it, you can get one. My suggestion would be buy the access code and then go on, Chegg or any of these other used textbook sites and get an older version of the book. It's really the same thing. It's just a way for them to make more money, right? So buy the access code. If you really want a physical copy of the book, that access code comes with an electronic PDF. So you'll have the book when you buy that code. It's just that you have to look at it on your computer. So if you want a physical copy, get a used one. It's way cheaper and it's the same thing. Okay. Other than that, I'll be posting, like I already this week, lecture slides for every week. This kind of gives me, instead of posting every single day, it gives me some flexibility. We can spend a little more time, some classes on something, I'm not like married to exactly what we're going to cover every single day. If questions come up, sometimes I think I want to, I don't think everyone's understanding something. I might spend a little bit more time and kind of try to be flexible with that. So I will always have them posted the night before for class. For us, we meet on Tuesdays, but I have other classes Mondays, so the slides will be up there on Sunday night at the very latest, right? What else do I want to say here? So I already talked about Zoom. Oh, I put the link to the YouTube page right here. Okay. I think the easiest way to access the YouTube page, and actually, I just remembered I told someone I was going to do something here. So give me 2 seconds. Because I know some people are locked out. Oh, that's not what I want. I need to. Where is it? I go here. Copy invite link. Sorry about this. I forgot to do this before class started. All right. So I think the easiest way to access those, go to YouTube, search Professor Lantis. Oops, Lantis. I'm the first one that comes up until I guess another Professor Lantis starts posting more than I am. Here's kind of all the videos, but I would just go to playlists, right? And you can kind of see I have multiple classes. We are section 9, right? Click on that playlist. Right now, there's only one video after today. I'll post the recorded lecture from today, and you kind of access all the YouTube videos that way, right? You can use that link, but I honestly think searching Professor Lantis is probably the easier way to go, okay? Go back to the slides here. So we've got the YouTube, and I don't know how much I'll do this semester. I did a few times last semester. Sometimes I'll put up additional recordings that are just like more help. Usually it's related to Excel. Like it's me working through another Excel example, something we did in class, but just showing you it with a different data set, right? So you'll have multiple kind of examples that you can view. I'll also post additional videos sometimes as we get close to exams. That'll be like review of, I'll usually do some like practice exams. So it'll be me going through some of the problems on the practice exams that we weren't able to get through in class. So anytime I post those additional videos, I'll make sure I put an announcement up on Canvas so that you'll know it exists. I'm not just gonna put it up there and expect you to check the YouTube page every day. Right? I'll let you know if I post those additional recordings. Okay? Any questions from you up to this point? Probably not, still got a lot to go through, right? So, I don't know, this is just some kind of general things. You know, you have to wear a mask. I see everybody here is. I mean, I think this is old hat at this point. If you're on Zoom, I have it set so that you should come in muted, but please remain muted unless you have a question, which for those on Zoom right now, can someone try to unmute and ask a question? I'm not sure how the audio works in this room, but hopefully I should be able to hear you. Can I get one of you to do that for me?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can barely hear, but I'll crank the volume up on my laptop for future classes. So if you have a question, you can ask it. You probably won't be able to hear it out there. I can hear it, and I'll repeat the question, and we can kind of, even if you're not able to attend in person, have that synchronous kind of learning experience. Okay? I've got some important dates up here. The two exams, I already mentioned about those. They'll probably be on those two dates. You have a question? I heard someone talk. Make sure you mute your mic. If you ask a question, make sure you mute it after you unmute it. So likely this first exam is probably set in stone. The second exam date is the one that sometimes gets pushed forward a class or so. The way that I'll do these, because I have multiple sections, even though we all can meet in person, maybe someone ends up getting COVID around that time and isn't able to, or several people do. I'm going to do the exams through Canvas. Okay. So usually what I would do is, let's say we meet on Thursdays, I would likely open up the exam Thursday morning. You can log on, take it anytime Thursday during the day or anytime Friday during the day. So it'll be like a 48-hour time period. And once you start, you'll have a specified amount of time, an hour, hour and 15 minutes, something like that, to complete and submit the exam, right? But it gives you a little bit of flexibility if you aren't able to attend in person or if we have some health complication things, you'll have that 48-hour time block. Log on at any time that kind of fits your schedule, as long as you have like an hour, hour, 15 minutes where you can get in and work on that exam, okay? If I do that, so usually I just said, it's 48 hours, it would cover our class period, right, where we would usually meet. So what I would do on that class period where we have the exam is just actually do review. So I say it's a 48-hour time period. I would think in your best interest, you would want to watch the review and then maybe do the exam after. So it's really probably more like a 36-hour time period. Okay. These are just some university dates, add drop, withdrawal dates. We have these study days this semester. I don't know, but we don't meet, we're not supposed to meet on those days. I forget exactly which one of these applies to us. I'll post on Canvas announcement as we get close to that date. Because I think some of them are Tuesdays, some of them are Wednesdays. So for us, only the Tuesday, Thursday ones matter. But I'll post an announcement prior to the class when we have those study days. Okay. Any questions from you up to this point? Am I talking loud enough for you guys back there? Okay. I'm not standing next to the mic, but I can yell. All right, so what do you guys actually care about, right? How are you gonna get the grade that you want in this class, right? So the exams are a pretty big portion of the grade in this class, right? 60%. So a lot of times I think this is scary. Anytime I took a class and I saw that more than half the grade was from the exams, I was like, I can't say what I thought. But the way that I'll do this, and I think it actually really usually ends up helping you guys out, the fact that it is weighted this heavy, is we have 3 exams, 2 midterms and the final, okay? Whichever exam you do the best on, I'm gonna weight it 30% of the overall grade. Whatever exam you do the next best on, 20%, your worst exam is only 10, right? So, I like this because, anyone can have like a bad day or a bad week or a busy week. I had one student once show up and I swear I thought she was just gonna like throw up during the exam. She was so sick, right? And she did not do very well, and she did very well in the class, right? Well, I don't want to over penalize that situation. So this kind of allows for me to really capture a better metric of what your understanding was across the entirety of the course, right? So I think this really helps out a lot. Now, the one problem this kind of brings up is, as we progress throughout the semester, if you do really bad in that first exam, well, I can't show you your grade with this factored in yet because you haven't taken every exam. So I can kind of give you a ballpark about where your grade is going to be, but I have to treat every student the same. So what I typically do is I treat it as though the first exam, once we all take it, I automatically assign it 30%. When you take the second exam, I'll identify what your highest is of those two and assign it 30 and 20, right? So it always, if you do bad, is always kind of like a worst case scenario. Because if you do really good in that final, all the weighting switches, right? So we'll kind of talk about this. Actually, we'll talk about how we do weighted scores as part of the material in this course. So as we kind of progress throughout the course, when we get closer to these final exams, I'll explain this more and kind of go through exactly how you can identify what your highest exam is, and I'll do that for you on Canvas so you can figure out where your grade is at. Okay? Homeworks will be 30%. We're going to have 3 types, and I'll go over them a little bit more detail here in a second, but we're going to have Learn Smarts, which you can access through that connect code, or that access code I mentioned earlier. McGraw-Hill is the producer of the book, so that's kind of their platform that I'm using. So we'll do Learn Smarts from there, and we'll do Connect assignments from there. There are 2 different types of assignments, but all on the same platform, right? So you just need that one code to do both of them. The other one is Excel projects, which I create and come up with and give you data sets for. Each one of these will, like I said, this is a flexible class. So any given semester, there's usually 5, 6, sometimes 7 Learn Smarts across these 3 different categories. So you can kind of figure roughly 15 to 18 assignments between the 3 of these categories. That might sound like a lot, but these Learn Smarts, I don't even think if I can get my mouse over here. There we go. These Learn Smart assignments are just for completion, right? It takes 10 to 15 minutes of your time. You log on, you basically read through, answer a couple questions. Doesn't matter if you get the questions right. Actually, how many of you have used this in another course? Yeah, so like they're for completion. It's honestly a way for you to put a little bit of effort in and improve your grade in this class, right? These should be easy points. When I get to the end of the semester and I look at my grade book and I see people who don't have 100% in the Learn Smarts, it kills me because it's the easiest points that you can get that help boost your grade, right? But if you don't do them, it can kill your grade, right? If you get a 0 in this category, it can really hurt your grade. So this is really just a matter of staying on top of assignments, making sure you get them done on time. It takes 10 to 15 minutes to get through them, right? So each category, these 3 types, Learn Smart, Connect, and Excel, each are worth 10% of your overall grade, right? So what I'll actually do at the end of the semester is drop the lowest of each type, right? So whatever Connect assignment you did worst on will get dropped. If you missed one, that's a 0, that'll probably be the one that gets dropped, right? That'll be your worst assignment. Whatever your worst Excel assignment is at the end of the semester, that will get dropped. Now, obviously, this doesn't occur until the very end of the semester, but at the end of the semester, your grades, I'll drop the lowest of each one of these, and that'll be reflected in your overall score. Okay. Any questions from me? Especially on these first days, I can really get going. I can get going all the time, but if I ever am kind of going too quick or you have a question, speak up, raise your hand, make sure you stop me and get clarification, okay? The last thing, the other 10% will be from online quizzes, right? So usually in the past, I've used iClickers. What I've started doing because of kind of the hybrid format is it's essentially what questions I would ask you in class, but I put up these little quizzes on Canvas, right? So these quizzes, let me see. I'll skip ahead because I think I had maybe I don't. I'll just explain them then. These quizzes are, it's in the syllabus, that's where it's at. These quizzes are easy points, right? So I'll give you an example of what the first one might look like. We go over some sample problems in class. We work through them. I show you how to work through them. The online quiz that I would then post, as soon as I get back to my office, right, might have 3 questions, okay? If you answer all 3 incorrect, right, you would still get 7 out of the 10 points for the day. So each question's worth a point, and then the remaining points to get us up to 10, I call the base points. So the very first question of every online quiz is click yes to earn the 7 base points for the day, right? So once again, simply logging on, even if you don't answer the other questions, click the yes in the first question, you get 7 out of 10 for the day. And sometimes I only ask you 1 question. So sometimes just logging on, even if you get the question wrong, you're gonna get 9 out of 10 in that little online quiz for the day, okay? this is really just effort points. So the way I view really life, I'm gonna get deep here, is every production, right? Everything that you produce, whether or not that's a grade or anything, is a combination of your ability and your effort, right? Right, if I have the most insane ability ever, right, I could, never study, I should take a quiz, I might be able to do really well, right? But if I put in a little bit of effort and I have a really high ability, I can get like 100. Right? Well, even if my ability is pretty bad, like I'm terrible at English, right? You'll know this by the end of the semester. I say things that are grammatically terrible, my writing is not great, but if you put in a little bit of effort, right, even with low ability, you can do pretty well. So there's a lot of components in this class where, yeah, if you don't completely understand the material, you're not going to get the best exam score. But if you put in effort to things like just making sure you submit the online quizzes, making sure you do the Learn Smarts, that's just effort, right? And effort will kind of boost your grade, right? So it's this combination of ability and effort. And I've tried to build in things in this course where part of your grade really is effort, okay? Oh, also, at the end of the semester, I dropped the 3 lowest, right? So a lot of the times that ends up being if you forget one or you forgot to submit one, that'll be one of the ones that gets dropped, right? But even if you do all of them, I'll drop your 3 lowest online quiz grades. And those will be accessed through Canvas. They'll kind of show up once I post them, but there is a little quizzes kind of button on the left-hand side, just like there's the Zoom button, and you can kind of see all the old quizzes. Once you submit them, you can go back and look at your answers and things like that. I put up this slide to kind of help with accessing this Connect platform where you are Connect and Learn Smart assignments. So on Canvas, I've already got, I hate looking at myself. So where is it? Here we go. You'll see the first assignment, right? It's due, what, next, might have put this as the wrong day. Yeah, no, it's a week from today, right? Next Tuesday when class starts. So basically, I want you this week, your homework assignment this week is to get that access code to Connect, get on, and complete this first Learn Smart assignment. Should take, I think, 10 to 15 minutes to go through, get the easy points, and I just want you to make sure it's done by next Tuesday's class. Right? So if you click on this link, and I can't walk through it because I already have, it'll log me on as an instructor, but if you click on this link, right, it basically kind of walks you through these steps. You click on the link, it'll send you to McGraw-Hill's website. It'll be some question, you hit continue, register, just follow these steps. It's like signing up for anything, right? It's like signing up for, I don't know, Netflix or Spotify or anything like that, right? Except for I think the last part, obviously you'll kind of have this kind of payment once you get to the end, right? It's pretty self-explanatory. Once you click on that link, it's in Canvas. I think all of you, as most of you are kind of sophomore, juniors, you should be able to kind of figure this out at this point, right? If you have any difficulties with this though, because I know that I've had sometimes different web browsers have had issues with this. Also, anything we do in terms of online quizzes or exams, don't use Safari. I don't know why it hates Canvas, but I have a lot of issues with it showing different mathematical equations. So try to use Firefox, Internet Explorer, or Google Chrome. Right? For whatever reason, Safari just does not like some of the things that I do with math equations in Canvas. Okay? But if you have any problems with this, email me. As with anything, always feel free to reach out, email me, and we'll kind of try to get it worked through. So try to do that early this week, right? Because I want you to be able to get on and get that assignment done. Hell, I'd like all of you to get it done by today, right? By the end of the day today, or tomorrow, so that we can get this out of the way, get this easy first Learn Smart out of the way pretty quickly here, okay? The other thing I want to mention here, when you put in your email address here, I know that a lot of you have like Google accounts. Sorry, I hate masks. Google accounts. Please use your Ball State email address. I've had issues in the past, whereas if you don't, sometimes like it won't upload your scores to Canvas right away or at all. And so I have to go in and do it manually. You can't see your grade. You think that you've got a 0 for it. So use your Ball State email address when you're signing up for this, okay? And I think even if you already have bought this, you can go back through retroactively and change the email address that is kind of associated with your account. All right, any questions on this before we keep moving? We're good? Okay. So I like to use memes a little bit in this class. These Excel assignments, you're gonna hate them. I'll just tell you right now, a lot of you are going to hate them, right? They're difficult, right? There'll usually be about 5, like I said. Sometimes maybe I'll do a 6th one at the end of the semester. It's a little bit easier. But the thing is, I'll always work through an example in class that looks just, I shouldn't say identical, but very similar to the assignment that I'll give you with just a different data set, right? So if you attend class or you watch the videos and you pay attention, we'll always work through an example and you'll have the file. I'll put the file up that once we've completed in class, I'll post that to Canvas under that in-class data folder, and you'll have that as a template when you go to work on that Excel assignment, right? So that should help out a lot, right? You'll still probably hate them because they are difficult, right? If you don't know Excel, now I'm trying to learn stats and Excel at the same time, right? And that is difficult. But I'll tell you right now, I'd be doing you a disservice if I didn't teach you how to use Excel, right? I'm probably could even teach you to use other stats programs and be even better, but really that's probably for kind of a more advanced stats class, right? But understanding how we can use Excel, I guarantee you're going to be expected to do this once you get out of here. I've had several students who have either emailed me after taking my class and said, I had to use this from our course in my first job or in my internship, right? I actually had, I think now I'm up to 3 students. 3 of them have reached out where part of their application process was actually completing an Excel project that the company gave them, right? So I know that I know you need these skills, right? And so I know they're going to be tough. We'll get through them, right? And as with anything, any homework assignment, always feel free to reach out, right? I hate the current climate because I love to have people in my office hours, which I'll mention here in a second. You can still show up, right? I did a lot of Zoom office hours last semester, and actually I found with the Excel projects, a Zoom meeting sometimes works better than physically being in my office because it's easier to see, to go from my screen to your screen, right? So a lot of times for help with these Excel projects, we set up a Zoom meeting. It's real easy for me to kind of figure out, see what your work is and figure out where maybe some small errors are, or kind of help you work through it, right? If you want to show up to my office, I'll put the hours up here in a second, but you still can. The only thing I ask is, and I have been posted in the syllabus what the office hours are, just send me an email and set up a time because I'm not supposed to have more than 1 person in my office, so I can't just leave it open-ended and have people waiting in the hallway, and that's not going to be good for me. So if you want to meet in person, you still can. Just send me an email and set up, hey, I know you have office hours from 2 to 4. I'll be there at 2:15. Does that work? I say, sure, I've got a slot open, show up. Okay? The other thing is, even though I have office hours in there, I don't know if you noticed, I have a little thing on the end that says or by appointment. I realize my office hours are kind of in the middle of the day. Some of you probably have other classes during those times. I'm around the building a lot, not this building, over in the business college, which it's going to take me a while to get used to hiking all the way over here. I don't know. Have you guys ever had classes in here? This is bizarre to me. So anyways, if you can't meet during those times, then can we meet at 10 o'clock on Wednesday morning? I say, yeah, I'm available. Show up, I'll be there. Okay. Any questions on this so far? I think I probably skipped ahead on some things. So how do you pass this class? Come to class or Zoom into class, watch the YouTubes, read those Learn Smarts. Once I said easy points, effort points, do the homework, right? So the great Michael Scott, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, which I think, you watch The Office, you get that wasn't actually really him. No Office fans here. Anyways, so the one thing I will say is on the homeworks, I've had people like, I'm so lost. I don't know what to do on this Excel assignment. I put it off to the last day. Now it's past 6 o'clock, so I can't ask you for questions, which in the syllabus I say, you do have questions, please email me or reach out between the hours of like 9 and 6, right? If you email me after 6 o'clock at night, the day an assignment's due, you may not get a response. Sometimes I don't have anything going on. I feel nice. I'll still respond to you, but I can't guarantee it, right? I do things after 6 o'clock that take me away from the computer, okay? But even if you don't know what's going on, I've had people like upload just like, really, I'll be honest, just messes. They had no clue, but they still get points because they had some things right? And submitting nothing is always better. Submitting something is always better than submitting nothing. A 0 will kill your grade. A 0 will kill your grade. a 50 it's not good, but it doesn't kill it, right? You can come back from that, right? So even if you can't get the whole thing done, submit as much as you can, right? I'm telling you, it helps out a lot, right? A 0 is way worse than a 50, okay? Here's my office hours. So Monday, Wednesday, 2 to 4, and then Tuesday, Thursday, 2 to 3, right? So after this class, basically, I'm in my office the next hour, and then I have another class. If these hours don't work for you, like I said, send me another time. I'm usually around in the mornings, so we could set up something during that. I have a GA for this course. I don't have his office hours yet. I should have them from him sometime this week. He's in the business building as well, right down the hall from me. So if for whatever reason I scare you or you don't like me, you can always ask him for help as well, okay? And he's great. He helps me out a lot. Smart kid. Help me help you. Right? Does anybody know what movie this is from? Nobody? Jerry Maguire? No one's seen that? Yeah, you all should watch. That's your assignment as well for this week. So I already mentioned office hours, schedule them ahead of time. You can still meet in person. Zoom meetings are a thing that I think are really, really helpful, especially with the Excel assignments. And I already mentioned that, I'm really usually not available after 6 o'clock. So that goes for office hours as well. Probably only going to schedule things between 9 and 6, okay? All right, where are we on time? Oh, we're good. So any questions for me, kind of course-related stuff? Otherwise, we'll kind of jump into a little bit of material here for the first day. We'll probably get out a little bit early, but I'm not going to do anything too in-depth today. But I just want to kind of introduce some things that we'll be going through in this class. Yeah. No, I won't post one today. I'll probably put one up Thursday after class, but today we won't have one. And Thursdays will probably be, won't be material related. It'll be something like, I'll ask you what your highest math course is, what year you are, what your major is, because that kind of helps give me an idea about what the composition of the class is and what examples you guys might be interested in, where you're kind of at in terms of your math abilities. I might ask something about, whether or not you use Excel in other courses or something like that as well. Yeah, so the first one, it'll be after Thursday's class, but it'll be easy. It'll just be me trying to get information from you guys. Okay. Any other questions? All right. So anytime, I already mentioned we're going to be using some data sets in this course, all in Excel. So I always try to remember to do this, and as the semester goes on, I find myself doing a poor and poorer job. But if I give you a data set and you're ever interested in where it came from, please feel free to ask me. I'll try to mention it and remember to mention it. Sometimes I'll forget. But these will be things like, we'll look at some labor statistics. We'll do maybe some stuff with some finance data. This National Longitudinal Survey of the Youth, I'll use this a lot. It started in 1978 or 79, I forget which year now. And it basically follows people all the way through their life, asking them questions about income, education. There's questions about like alcohol use, things like that. So we'll use this a lot because it has some really unique, interesting data. But I always try to mention what my data sources are. But these will be some kind of major ones that we use. So I was trying to set up what we're going to do in this class with a couple examples. Because my goal in this class, there's going to be a lot of computation, especially early on. But my end goal is for you guys to be able to understand how to interpret statistics and how to apply them, right? So I want you to look at media reports and think why are they lying to me, right? What could be, why could this data that they're telling me or this statistic be misleading, right? And the more we understand about statistics and how they're computed, the more we can actually understand this. So, excuse me, the first example is, you see some publication, California has more teachers than, what did I say, Arizona, right? Therefore, California cares way more about their kids' education, right? Why would this be misleading? This is a true stat. There are definitely more teachers in California than there are in Arizona. I pray to God they have more teachers, right? They got way more kids. If they had the same, even if they only had 100 extra teachers, that'd be a bad scenario, right? So we have a statistic here, it's true, but the statement we made doesn't really match with that data, right? What would probably be a better stat to use here? Teachers per person or per student, right? some type of like teacher to pupil ratio. All right, so sometimes we're just looking at the wrong statistic, right? Or we'll end up figuring out is the wrong variable. Right? So example 2. So this is a sports example. I try not to use a ton of them, but sports data is really easy to get, and it's a pretty universally understood thing, right? So I try to shy away from it as much as I can because I know not everybody's interested. But small market teams, which are basically smaller cities that don't have as many resources, right, to go out and obtain high-quality players, have won 6 out of the last 10 World Series, right? So this article concludes that money doesn't buy championships. Right? So why is this stat maybe misleading? So 6 out of 10, right, more than 50%. So yeah, the small market teams are winning more than the large market teams. But 6 out of 10, why do you think they probably didn't go back to the 11th year? Well, if we go back to the 11th year and a small market team won, well, now I've got 7 out of 11. That's even better. So what's probably true about that 11th year? Probably was a large market team. And 6 out of 11 doesn't look as good as 6 out of 10. So anytime we see data censored or like cut, like looking at, between 1980 and 2000, why didn't they go to 2010? Right? Always think about why did they choose that specific frame of data, right? Why did they censor the data at that point? Right? Probably because it helped them tell their story better, right? Example 3, one of my favorite examples this semester, and I burned it day 1. But a study found that 90% of bar fight deaths, so a bar fight in which a death occurred, it was the individual who died was the one who started the fight, right? So karma's a fill in the blank. Right? So why maybe shouldn't we believe this? Right? So 90% of bar fights, the person who dies is the person who started the fight. Who's the only person left in that fight? The other person who killed someone. Right? So the only person we can ask who started the fight, potentially between these two people, is the person who killed someone. You think they're going to tell you that they started the fight? Probably not, right? The fact that this isn't 100% is amazing, right? So you got to think about where you're getting the data from, right? The only person we got the data from maybe is the person who lived, right? Where is our data coming from, right? And we'll talk about this later in the semester, how this creates bias, how we collect data, okay? Data collection. Example 4, higher ice cream sales are correlated with higher drowning deaths. This is like an age-old statistics example. So that they conclude ice cream sales are causing people to die. Right? But we know this can't be true. This stat is true. Ice cream sales and drowning deaths, those are positively correlated. But why do you think they're probably positively correlated? When is ice cream sales probably the highest during the year? Summer? When are drowning deaths more likely to occur? When people are swimming, people are more likely to swim in the summer, right? When temperatures are warm. So there's this other factor, right? These two things are correlated, but one isn't causing the other. It's this outside factor that we're not considering that's causing both of them, right? So by the time we get to the end of the semester, we'll dive into this a little bit deeper, this difference between correlation and causation. Okay? So these are all some of the things, I don't know, I think this is kind of some fun examples. We'll work through some, I think, examples that are a little bit more fun as we go, but this kind of sets us up to start thinking, yeah, we can come up with these statistics and they can be true, but we need to think about what might we be missing, right? Where do we get the data from, right? Why is the data censored at this point, right? Are we using the right variable? Right? So, with that being said, we'll kind of introduce the idea. I said variable, we'll introduce the idea of variables, right? When I use this term variable, like we had a data set here, once again, I use some sports data, but anytime I use sports data, I'll make sure I mention, it doesn't matter, right? What do I have here? I have player names, I have the position that they are at the company, and I have their salaries. This very easily could be Deloitte, right? 9 employees from Deloitte, their salaries and their position at the company, right? So it gives us 3 variables that are kind of universal to a bunch of different data sets. When I say 3 variables, you can think about the variables as, I skipped one, but the variables are these columns, right? I have the variable of position, I have the variable of salary, and I have the variable of player name. Within this data set, I not only have 3 variables, but for each variable, I have several observations, right? So observations are the rows, or if you look at the book or others, if you look at like a more stats book that's applied to like applied stats, they won't call them observations, they'll call them elements. It's the same thing, right? So each row is an element or observation. And for each observation, I collect data on different variables, which are my columns, right? So I've got what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 observations. And I've collected information for each observation on 3 different variables. Okay? So my observations are my rows, my variables are my columns. And that's the easiest way to remember. Okay? So what types of data might we have, or what types of variables can I collect? So the first, we're going to call it qualitative, right, or categorical. Okay? So qualitative, right, is if I'm collecting information on observations that is not numerical. That's the easiest way to think about it. I think here I said it's a, it's a name or a label, but the easiest way to think about it is it's not a number, right? I'm just collecting information that is a word, right? So I go back here, right? I could think about player name is a qualitative variable, right? It's not a number. I'm just collecting what that person's name is. No numeric, it's not a numerical value. Okay? I can also think of maybe if I had like a used car data set, some qualitative variables would be like the color of the car, the make and the model of the car, right? Because those are non-numerical values. Quantitative, right, is the exact opposite. It is a numerical value, right? So I don't know. I think a good, I don't know. At this point, I think we throw this word, this quantitative word is a little bit more, is used a little bit more. Here's a good way to remember maybe like quantum physics, quantitative. Quantum physics is a lot of math. Quantitative, numerical, right? But really that's the difference between the two. Qualitative, we're looking at some non-numerical description or characteristic of each observation. Quantitative, we're looking at a numerical value for each observation for that variable. My used car data set, that would be like recording the mileage, right? That mileage variable would be quantitative. If I go back here, right? Salary would be quantitative, right? It's a numerical value. I think this is fairly easy, right, to distinguish the difference between those two. So we'll then break those two down into different categories. Right? So qualitative, right, that's non-numbers, not a numerical value. A qualitative variable can be nominal and it can be ordinal. So the first one we'll go through is a nominal qualitative variable. So that would be a nominal variable is a qualitative variable that has no intrinsic value. Like the name of the player doesn't tell me anything, right? In terms of I can't like rank the players based off their name. I guess I could organize them alphabetically, but it doesn't tell me anything about kind of the value of those players relative to each other, right? Other examples would be like, let's say I had a data set of this class and I recorded every single person's hair color, right? That is a descriptive word that tells me something about each observation, but I can't rank you based off your hair color, or pray to God that I don't rank you based off your hair color, right? So other examples we can think about, we often have gender is one of the qualitative nominal variables that we collect. In the example that we looked at earlier, baseball positions, I think these are fairly, this shouldn't be too bad yet. We looked at this data set earlier, I kind of already went back. It's not only nominal, but this variable of name and the variable of position are just some word that has no intrinsic value. Can't rank the players based off of this. Okay. Now, ordinal variables are a little bit more useful, right? They're not numbers. They're still a qualitative variable. Right? They're still qualitative, but I can rank the observations based off of this ordinal qualitative variable. So what might that look like? Best example. So whenever you have like the student evaluations come in, they ask you a question, you either strongly disagree, neutral, agree, or strongly agree, right? Well, let's say at the end of the semester, I have all your responses. I can rank who thought I was a better professor as the people who were strongly agree that I was effective, right? And then kind of the next would be whoever responded agreed, and then neutral, and right? I can order the data based off this response. It's not a number, right? It's still qualitative. It's still a phrase or a word that I'm collecting, right? But I can rank the data based off this. Now that's great, but within each response, right? Let's say I take all of the responses that say strongly agree. Well, I can't rank those against each other, right? I can only rank them against the other responses that aren't strongly agreed. So it gives me some ability to rank the data, but not perfectly. I couldn't tell you the student who thinks, I'm the most effective teacher, right? I can tell you the group who think I'm strongly effective or strongly agree, but I can't within that category rank them, right? So it still has its limitations, right? But an ordinal qualitative variable is usually a little bit more useful than a nominal variable, okay? Another common one we'll look at is education levels. So let's say I ask them what their education level is. They have less than a high school degree, only a high school degree, some college, a college degree or a graduate degree. Like what's their highest level of education? Well, it's still a phrase. I'd say qualitative variable, but I can rank people in terms of how much education they've had based off these categories. Any questions on those? And I apologize, I might revisit this at the beginning of next class. I didn't have the time to get in here and play around with this dot cam that I think they literally brought in here this morning. I actually wasn't even able to get in this classroom until today. So next class, I'll probably do a couple things kind of showing, we've got this title of qualitative variable, and underneath it are these two categories of nominal and ordinal. Okay. I don't think I have any other exams. Oh, another example would be like letter grades. If all I'm able to observe is a letter grade, I can rank them, right? I can rank these students here based off the letter grade they got, going from A down to F. But if I look at all the students who got an A, I can't tell you who had the higher A. Right? One might have had a 98, one might have had 97, but I can't determine that just based off the variable that I have, right? And that would be like a data limitation, right? I can't observe the actual percentage, I just see the letter grade. Okay, perfect. So we went through two types of qualitative variables. We'll now go through two types of quantitative variables, okay? So the first type of quantitative variable, and we'll really use this for a lot of this semester, right? We're going to be exploring different topics, but fundamental is we understand this difference between discrete and continuous variables. Okay? So discrete variables are going to be quantitative, right? They are a number, but there's gaps in between what we can see, right? So when we record this variable, there's going to be gaps in between the values that we record. So the easiest way to think about this is a number line. Let's say I ask somebody the number of siblings that they have, right? They could respond 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to whatever the largest family is. But they can't say 1.5, or like, Jesus, I hope they don't have 1.5 siblings, right? That would be bad. So we can only see the integer values. And that's primarily the variables that we'll use that are discrete will be you can only see the integer values, right? So the number of siblings or like the number of days you do something every week or the number of days you do something every month. If I asked you how many days you consume alcohol each week, if you drank today, I hope not, you've drank 1 day out of the 7 so far, right? Or whatever like that, right? Once you have it, it's 1 day, right? You can't have half a day. If we want to be theoretically correct, I won't use examples like this in this class. Like any time we deal with discrete variables, could be integers. But you could have a variable that you record, which maybe you can only observe it in every 10, right? Maybe you're observing how much of a product was sold, but it's only sold in like boxes of 10. So I could only ever see 10, 20, 30. That'd still be a discrete variable, right? It's a numerical value, but I can't see the values in between the 10s. But more often it's integers, right? I just can't see the values in between 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I can see 1, 5, I can't see 7.3. Right? That's the easiest way to think about discrete variables, okay? Any questions on that? All right. The next one is continuous, all right? So if discrete was that we could only see the integers, continuous is basically we can see any value in between the integers as well. So if I have a variable and it's continuous, truly continuous, it could be any number. So before I go through the examples, right, we could see 2, we could see 5, we could see 6.31529. Right? We could see any value for this variable. Okay? That would be truly continuous. Okay? So we can think about if we had a good enough measuring tool, we could measure height out to whatever decimal we wanted, weight, salary, right? Now, often we're kind of limited by kind of the measuring tool. So like, let's say I'm trying to measure someone's weight, right? Maybe whatever device I have to measure the weight can only go out to like the second decimal. So for the sake of this class, we're going to treat continuous variables as any variable that we can see any decimal point on, right? If you wanted to get in an argument with me theoretically, right, you could argue that more likely than not, salary is technically discrete. Why would salary technically be discrete? If I'm trying to pay you, what can I pay? What's the first amount I could give you other than 0? If I was to pull out a penny, right? Can I give you half a penny? No, right? So technically, there are gaps. But for the sake of what we're going to do in this class, anything that we can see any decimal on, we'll treat that as a continuous variable, right? Like I said, you could really get into the weeds of what's truly continuous. And really, I would actually still argue salary actually is, because you can actually, if you look at pay stubs, you can be paid like, because we store things electronically now, right? You can be paid like 0.333 repeated, right? You can actually go out to as many decimals as you want. Same thing with height. If we had a perfect measuring tool, we could go out to whatever decimal we wanted. It's just usually the way that we record it might look like it's, stops at the first decimal. But for our sake, continuous variable, anytime you can see a decimal on that numerical value. Okay? Any questions on that? Make sure we're okay with that. Okay. All right. I don't want to say anything else here. I don't think so. So if we go back to that salary, I think when I have it displayed here, I cut off the decimals, but in the actual data set here, you would have like decimals on all these values, so we would have salary would be continuous. So we're supposed to go to, okay, we'll go a little bit longer. I won't go to the full time today, don't worry, it's the first day. So what are some types of data sets that we'll look at? So we just talked about types of data that we could collect, individual variables. What types of data sets can we look at? So the first and the most common is a cross-sectional data set, right? So cross-sectional is going to be, we've got one point in time, and for every observation, we're collecting multiple characteristics. So this would be like, in 2011, I collect every single country's unemployment rate, right? I have one point in time, but I have multiple subjects, multiple countries, right, that I'm collecting data on. Or it could be, in 2020, I'm collecting the average income of every state, right? The states that are being my observations, okay? But I'm doing it at one point in time, a snapshot, right? Time series is going to be when I look at one subject. So maybe I look at one country, and I collect data on their unemployment in 20 different years, right? So now I have one subject, one country, but I'm collecting data at multiple points in time, right? 20 different years. So their unemployment rate in 1990, their unemployment rate in 1991, so on and so forth. Or, using my other example, I'm using one state, maybe Indiana, and I'm looking at the average income in Indiana in 2010, the average income in Indiana in 2011, et cetera, right? One subject, multiple points in time, right? So cross-sectional and time series are kind of like the transpose. One is transpose, or the reverse of each other, right? Or the opposite of each other, if you want to think about it that way. Okay? The most useful, and we really won't get to see the extent of the power of having this data set in this course, but if we were to kind of continue on with statistics, a panel data set is actually going to be the most useful that we could have, right? So a panel data set is like if you took a time series data and cross-sectional data set and you mash them together. So you're going to have multiple subjects and you'll be collecting data at multiple points in time. So this would be like if I took every single country and I collected their unemployment rate for each of the last 20 years. Now I have multiple subjects, multiple countries, and multiple points in time. Okay. Or my other example, I took every single state and I collected every single state's average income for the last 20 years, right? Multiple subjects, multiple points in time. So it's like I mashed the two together. Okay. And I'll try as we start to kind of work through some data sets, make sure I mention what type it is. So here's a couple examples just to give you some visuals. So cross-sectional data, I've got multiple subjects in 1 year, one point in time, 2011, and I collected multiple variables, right? But it's only at one point in time. So I got Australia's GDP, primary and secondary education expenditures, Austria's GDP, primary, secondary education expenditures, et cetera, right? Multiple subjects, one point in time. But I can have multiple variables there, right? They're all collected from that year of 2011. Okay. Time series, this would be like if I look at the US, I've got, 10 years here, and the unemployment rate in each year. So one subject, the United States, collecting the unemployment rate at multiple points in time. Once again, I can have time series data where I have multiple variables. This data set doesn't, but I could, collect the unemployment rate, the average income in the US, average education level or something like that. Right? So I could have multiple variables, but they're all for one subject, the United States. And then panel data set, right? So this is ISTEP score data. So it looks like I've got different students, right? So I strip the names off of it and I just have identifiers. So student ID number 1, student ID number 2, 3, et cetera, et cetera. So I've got multiple students, multiple subjects, and I've got what their ISTEP math and reading scores were in 3 different years, right? So multiple points in time, multiple subjects. Right? So this is a data set that I actually have, but I think everyone's aging out of it because I don't know if any of you would have been in 8th grade in 2011, but at least when I was first using it, like I had some of my students actually in this data set. I couldn't tell who it was because I don't have the names, but they were, if you went to school in Indiana and you took the ISTEP score, you exist in this data set that the state kind of continually builds. All right, one more thing before we go. We'll talk about the differences between population and samples, okay? So when we look at data sets, a lot of the times what we wish we had is population data. Right? So population data will be like, if I'm interested in what the average income in the US is, I would need a data set that has every single person in the United States and what their income was in order to calculate the mean or the average, right? That's very difficult to get, right? The IRS can get it. It's difficult for other people to get. Or maybe I want the average height in the US. I have to have every single person and their recorded height. It's almost impossible to get population data sets sometimes. It's a lot more feasible, when we try to collect population data using a census, but censuses are very costly. It's very difficult to run. That's why we only do it every 10 years. So often we're kind of left with a sample, right? A sample is going to be some subset of the population. So maybe I'm interested in the average height in the US, and I don't know, I randomly sample 2,000 people. Well, I don't have the population data, I only have a sample. And it could be that my sample doesn't match the population. Hopefully it does, right? Hopefully I've randomly sampled. But when you look at sample data, you have to realize I only have a small subset. And it could be that my sample data, I just somehow ended up with a lot of NBA players in it. And so if I look at the average height of that data set, it's not going to match the whole US, right? So if we're dealing with sample data, we have to kind of keep that in the back of our mind that we don't have the full picture. Now, as we go through the course, we will have kind of a class or two where we talk about how we can ensure that our samples match our population. But at least for right now, we just want to know that there is a difference. I think I kind of go on about this, but this isn't really important. You don't need to necessarily kind of memorize, or I'll never kind of question on this, but we need a sample because, like I said, it's really expensive to try to get population data a lot of the time. It's almost impractical. So the example I always give is, let's say I'm concerned with like obesity in the US. So I go around, I try to collect every single person's weight. It's going to take me a while to get all that data. By the time I collect every single person's weight, what do you think's happened to some people's weight? It's went up or down, right? So it's just, there's some situations where it's literally impossible to get population data, right? And have it be accurate. So a lot of times we go based off of a sample because of practical reasons. I think we'll start out next class kind of with this because we should start diving how we actually use certain statistics, how we can put them in tables and graphs. I think maybe Thursday I'll open Excel and just show you some basics. If we don't get to it Thursday, for sure on Tuesday next week, where I'll just start to introduce Excel and then how we're going to use it. Also, when I use Excel, and it'll probably better for you is if you're watching on Zoom or the recorded lecture, I'll be sitting down. So hopefully you guys are okay with that because it's just too hard for me to stand up and use it. Other than that, so your objective this week is to do what? What's the one thing I said I want to make sure you did this week? Get on, get an access code to connect, and get that first Learn Smart done by next Tuesday's class, but preferably just get it out of the way this week so you don't forget about it. Easy points, get it out of the way. It's all you have to do for this class this week. With the exception of Thursday, I'll put an online quiz up that kind of asks you some questions about you. So the other thing I have to mention before we leave, next class, because I now know what the organization of this classroom looks like, I'm going to bring up a sheet, and I'll be here hopefully before anyone gets here, at least 10 minutes early. I'm going to have you kind of fill out where you sit, right? So if you want to move next class, choose the seat that you want, because for contact tracing, I have to have where everyone's at, right? I didn't know what the class was going to look like until I literally saw it today because it wasn't set up. So next class, I'll have you fill that out as you enter class. And if you forget to do it on your way in, it'll be there on the way out, okay? Any questions? Are we good? All right, I'll see you guys on Thursday.